privilege and happiness to welcome you to our conference in Paris. My name is Alex Benjamin, and I'm the Director of Public Affairs at the European Jewish Association. And along with our partners, the Consistoire de France and Action and Protection League, we are proud to be in this brand new building, the European Centre of Judaism. Take a look around you. This incredible synagogue, modern, full of light, it brims with self-confidence. So let's stop and reflect for a minute. Around 300 kilometers from here, in Aalst, Belgium, yesterday and today, a parade was taking place that shows what we're collectively up against. Hundreds of participants dressed in rabbi outfits with hooked noses and peyot. Floats depicting the worst caricatures of us imaginable. And they're proud to slap us in the face. They say we lack a sense of humour. In France, Germany, the UK, the Netherlands, record cases of anti-Semitism are being reported. Last month, we marked the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz and commemorated the Shoah. 6 million lost. A scar on the hearts of each and every one of us. We lack a sense of humour. Sorry, are we supposed to find anti-Semitism funny? Are we supposed to sit back and allow the circumstances that led to the Holocaust to develop again unchecked? Don't we owe it to Michael Knoll and all those who died because they're Jewish to fight anti-Semitism with every ounce of our being? Of course we do. And that's why we're gathered here, to talk, to discuss, but more than that, to act, to lobby, to ensure that never again isn't just a soundbite for politicians to say once a year, but is a leitmotif for them every single day. We owe it to ourselves, yes, but to our murdered brothers and sisters too. I think we have an opportunity to give them proud here over the next 2 days in this wonderful building that fills me with hope. Back to that statement I spoke about earlier. This building projects and represents a modern, unbowed, confident Jewish future, our Jewish future. This is our time to shape it, to tell the story to future generations of what we did when our backs were against the wall. This conference is part of that story. Let's make sure it's told right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to introduce to you Her Excellency Talya Lador-Fresher, who is a Chargée d'Affaires of Israel to France, who's heading up the embassy here in Paris. A wonderful ambassador for Israel, who has done diplomatic stints in Vienna, New York, Jerusalem, and I was just saying to Her Excellency, and I'm very jealous, Jamaica as well. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Mrs. Assistant Director General, Mr. President of the Consistoire, Chairman Rabbi Margolin, Rabbi Köves, Excellencies, distinguished guests from France and abroad, ladies and gentlemen, Shalom and Boker Tov. I'm honored to take part in such a unique conference on the fight against anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, taking place here, and you're absolutely right, in this very, very beautiful new European Center of Judaism at Place Jerusalem in the heart of Paris. In the next 2 days, many esteemed experts will discuss in full detail the phenomenon of anti-Semitism and the appropriate ways and means to fight it and to protect Jewish life, mainly in Europe. I wish to focus my short remarks on the issue of anti-Zionism and anti-Israel agitation. On May 26, 2016, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, also known as IRA, that incorporates 27 countries, including France and Israel, and since I have 2 friends from Austria, let me say Austria as well, has adopted in Bucharest a working definition of anti-Semitism. It is extremely important that on December 3rd, 2019, the Assemblée Nationale of France has also adopted this resolution. I wish to thank former Ambassador Aliza Bin Nun, the embassy staff, and the very many of you also presented here for supporting this significant step. This resolution includes examples to illustrate what modern anti-Semitism is all about. It includes denying the Jewish people the right to self-determination by claiming that the sheer existence of the State of Israel is a racist endeavor, and by applying double standards by requiring Israel a behavior not expected or demanded from any other democratic country. Israeli diplomats are often confronted with this phenomenon. While in the first case, the denial of Israel's right to self-determination, it is relatively possible to build international coalitions to fight against it. It is extremely difficult for us to fight against the expectations regarding Israel's moral ground. Part of it is now demonstrated in the process that has started within the ICC. The double standard and hypocrisy poses a huge challenge to Israel's diplomats and well-wishers. These manifestations can be found in universities, NGOs, media outlets, and political parties in many countries across Europe. On the bilateral front, and sometimes even more troublesome, you can find the manifestations on the multilateral front. For example, Israel is the only long-term member of the United Nations that was never elected as a member of the UN Security Council. Another example. There are 7 well-known, protracted conflicts worldwide. These are conflicts that are going on and on for an undetermined period of time. These include, for example, Northern Cyprus, Georgia, Western Sahara, and of course the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as well. Throughout the years, the UN resolutions that dealt with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has mentioned again and again a term that you would think is relatively neutral: occupied territories. It should be a neutral term that actually can be applied to any other conflicted conflict. All in all, this terminology appears in UN resolutions 2,342 times when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In all other 6 protracted conflicts combined, the word Palestinian territories appears only 16 times. This brings us back to double standard and the fertile ground where anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism is growing. I wish to thank the many organizers for putting this serious and alarming issue in the spotlight, for bringing a wide array of speakers and experts, and for all of you who came here today, taking your time to focus on this ever-burning issue. Toda rabba.
Excellency, thank you for that. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is from UNESCO, based here in Paris. Assistant Director, Madame Stefania Giannini. She's devoted her career to date to promoting education as a fundamental human right, through the importance of language, lifelong learning, culture, freedom of expression and identity, in an effort to ensure a more equal and inclusive society. Madame Giannini, we thank you for your time to be with us here today. And just before I invite you to say a few words, we're super grateful as well for UNESCO for taking the Oust Carnival off the list. So that was a very important development. We thank you again for that. So, Giannini, if you'd like to address us. Thank you.
Monsieur le Président du Consistoire central de France, Dear Mr. Chairman of the European Jewish Association, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and a great pleasure to be here representing UNESCO at this annual conference of the Jewish Association. And let me say a few words about the topics that I'm supposed to speak about, the role of education as a tool for preventing violent extremism and anti-Semitism. Less than 1 month ago, we marked the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau on a special tone, a tone of deep fear and concern. We heard Mr. Marian Turski, I'm sure you know very well. He's a 93-year-old Polish survivor, and he reminded the world that Auschwitz didn't fall from the sky. And he reminded the world that democracy hangs on the rights of minorities being protected. So, but we are witnessing global resurgence of anti-Semitism hatred. And from 2017 to 2018, 2 years ago, anti-Semitic crimes increased by 20% in Germany and 70% in France. And they almost doubled in Belgium, just to quote very well-known numbers. Recent terrorist attacks in Brussels, Copenhagen, Paris, Halle are just prominent, clear examples of the increasing threats Jewish communities face across Europe. 9 in 10 Jews believe today that anti-Semitism is worse today than 5 years ago. And many are considering leaving the country. So, anti-Semitism, we can say, does not only harm the Jewish community. It undermines our fundamental rights by cultivating ideologies and coordinating intolerance and prejudice. And it builds on public discourses stigmatizing minorities, refugees, foreigners, and seeks to divide and exclude societies. We saw, unfortunately, very clearly it again in Hamburg, in Germany, recently. So, anti-Semitism and all other forms of racism are an attack on the very essence of our human rights, norms, and principles. This is the reason why UNESCO is committed to preventing violent extremism. We work across the board with educators, with youth, with movements, with the media, online and offline. We work within the United Nations system to implement a new strategy and plan of action on hate speech to better address the root causes and find effective responses and tools to the problem. I think that we have a shared responsibility. We have a shared responsibility to speak against anti-Semitism, and we have also some concrete action to be implemented. First, we must monitor anti-Semitism and punish it. Second, we must strengthen legislation and bolster the role of civil society. Third, we must denounce anti-Semitic expressions in every way, in every guise, and raise awareness against the forms it may take. Anti-Semitism feeds conspiracy theories of all sorts, you know very well, and it also manifests itself in context of public discourse and debate on the situation in the Middle East through the hateful and anti-systematic criticism of Israel, and distorting the history of the Holocaust. We know the role of media, and we know the crucial role of social media, especially in current times. So addressing this major challenge is both an immediate security imperative and a long-term educational obligation. This is why anti-Semitism must also be prevented. And for UNESCO, this must begin with education. Education that can sharpen our young people's critical thinking, education that can open the world to others and to help our children today, our young people today, to become responsible global citizens tomorrow. This, of course, requires political will. I can tell you also in my position of former Minister of Education in my country, in Italy, and we know very well that without political will, nothing happens. And that means, in concrete terms, to review policy, curriculum, textbooks, to provide teachers, the training they need, and the knowledge they need to address in the classroom this kind of very, very important and very, very complicated issues. This should be also a political priority in the near future. Recent surveys have found that a third of Europeans today had minimal or no knowledge about the Holocaust. There is only one word to describe this process, this phenomenon. This word is ignorance. And ignorance maybe is the real enemy we have, one of the many we have. 2 years ago, in partnership with the Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights of the OCDC, UNESCO has published the first ever guide for education policymakers and teachers on addressing anti-Semitism. And in a few days, we release new guidance materials for the teachers training institutions. In this spirit, in the same spirit, UNESCO will release new guides on how to address intolerance against Muslims, which is another kind of process which have very many similarities of what we're talking about today. And last year, UNESCO with ODHR and the World Jewish Congress has trained high-level representatives coming from more than 60 countries all over the world in order to give this kind of, I should say, package of knowledge and package of training in order to address through education and within education this topic. So, ladies and gentlemen, we know that the stakes are high, very high. We know that anti-Semitism must be confronted head-on and the hate crimes must be punished. Online and offline, we must take the most of the power of education for human rights, for tolerance, for new forms of global solidarity. And this has been UNESCO mandate from the very beginning of its history, from the establishment of this institution immediately after the Second World, and more than ever, I should say, is at the very core of UNESCO. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Giannini. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker, and I'm very pleased to see Rabbi Slomó Köves sitting there because I know he's a busy man. Not only is he the chairman of the Action and Protection League and a community rabbi, he's also right now doing, not right now, but he's also doing an online Daf Yomi, which I've been trying to follow, given that my Hungarian isn't so good, I haven't had much success. Next week also I'll be chairing a panel at APAC in Washington, DC, where he too will also be presenting. Somehow, and in between all of this and raising a family, Rabbi Köves has succeeded in building a resurgent Hungarian Jewry, establishing impeccable relations and gathering support from the Hungarian government. Rabbi Köves, it's my honor to ask you to address the conference.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a real honor to be here today. Although I just arrived from the airport, but it's a real honor. Probably all of us heard and know the old Talmudic saying, Im ein ani li mili, if I don't stand for myself, who will stand for me? Ukshani la'atzmi mo ani. But if I only stand for myself alone, what am I worth? Le'im lo achshav ei matai. And if not now, then when? This is the line that I thought of on the way here. I think all three parts of this anecdote are very relevant in today's age in European Jewry. Le'im lo achshav ei matai. If not now, then when is the time for action? If we don't act now, then it might be too late. As a rabbi, an Orthodox rabbi, I'm more and more confronted with the question, what is the reason that a rabbi and more rabbis and Orthodox rabbis are starting to deal with issues like anti-Semitism, combating anti-Semitism, and so on and so forth. Our job as rabbis should be just community building, teaching the Talmud, dealing with spiritual issues. But I think everybody that sits in this room knows that unfortunately we have came to a new era in European Jewry. The question is more and more asked, is there a future for Jews in Europe? And unfortunately, as somebody that is a descendant of Hungarian Jews for over 250 years, and probably a descendant of a Jewish family in Europe over 400 years, I can tell you that this question is confronted to me also many times. And I'm an optimistic person. I believe that there is and there should be a present and a future for European Jewry. But in order to assure that, we have to take action ourselves. In the past decades, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, things looked a little bit better. It looked like Europe has learned from its terrible, terrible past, its bloody past, and the things that happened 75, 80 years ago will never reoccur. 20, 30 years ago, we were able to leave combating anti-Semitism to advocacy groups, to political NGOs, to good people that felt that it's important to teach and combat against anti-Semitism. But anti-Semitism was more of a political issue. It was a political agenda of some, a minority. It wasn't a security issue. What we see now in the last 10, 20 years, there's a change. We are entering into a new era. Anti-Semitism is a high-level security issue with crazy numbers of anti-Semitic assaults all over Europe. Close to 2,000 anti-Semitic assaults, many of them physical anti-Semitic assaults in Great Britain last year. Over 600 anti-Semitic assaults in this country, in France. Close to 200 in the Netherlands. And even in my small community in Hungary, we have almost 50 a year. These numbers are numbers that show us that we have to take action ourselves. If we don't stand for ourselves, who will stand for us? Obviously, we don't forget that we are not alone. We are here with good partners from all around the Jewish community and outside of the Jewish community from the political realm. But we have to take action. And this is the reason we have founded the Action and Protection League in Hungary 8 years ago for monitoring, researching anti-Semitism, and launching educational, legislative, and legal projects in order to combat anti-Semitism. We have studied, and we have learned, and then we took action. And it seems that action actually has something to it. We can achieve a lot if we take action. This is the reason this past year we have launched the Action and Protection League of Europe. And this past year we have launched monitoring of anti-Semitism in many countries that didn't have the system set up by the OSCE so far. And we have conveyed a first-time ever representative research survey on anti-Semitic ideas and attitudes of the European societies in 16 European countries. This is the first time ever representative survey of this kind from all the countries in Europe that have a Jewish community. And this afternoon we will represent a first glimpse, a first taste of the outcome of this survey, and I can tell you that this survey is not very assuring. Almost 30% of all European countries, societies, hold some type of anti-Semitic attitudes. From the original, traditional anti-Semitic attitudes of the 20th and 19th century, anti-Judaic attitudes, anti-Israel sentiment, as well as denial of the Holocaust. These are all issues that tell us and warn us we have to take action. The time for action is now, and I call all of you, whether from here, from France, from Hungary, from other countries of Europe, whether from the Jewish community or from outside of the Jewish community, from the political realm, please join us in the fight of the oldest hatred, combating anti-Semitism. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure now to introduce you to our chairman, that is the chairman of the European Jewish Association, a man who's devoted to serving his life to serving the best interests of every single Jew on this continent, our chairman, Rabbi Menachem Margolin.
Good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Dear partners, Mr. Joël, Mergui, the President of the Consistoire of France, Rabbi Slomó, Köves, Chairman of Action and Protection League, Mayor of Paris, thank you for joining us. Jewish leaders from across the continent, diplomats, representatives of thousands of European countries, ladies and gentlemen. Eliakim Rubinstein,